Welcome to another episode of A Work in Progress. My name is Sam Teets. I'm your host today. And, every day tomorrow we're going to be on with Justin Widener. Hopefully, Matt Duffner. We're going to be counting down our top 10 players in the NBA. So we're actually going to be doing some NBA content tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're going to have that on. Maybe also have Ryan Gill. We'll figure that out. We're also going to feature some lists from Mark Formicelli and Brian Spolaric. I wanted to backtrack a little bit and continue doing a series I kind of started a little while ago. It's probably been 2 weeks by now, but I went back and did a video where I was reacting to the projected top 20 quarterbacks in 2020. It was an article Matt Miller wrote in 2016. And, of course, there were some horrendous mistakes on there. There were also some pretty good decisions. But, obviously projecting forward, that's a very complicated thing. So I'm not going to rip Matt Miller too much for it. But he also did an article projecting the top 20 running backs in 2020. So I wanted to go back, and I want to continue the series, and I want to go through this. Now, I have not seen this. So you and I will be reacting to this in live time together. There's been no preparation for this. Everything I say is off the cuff. Everything I say is a genuine reaction. So we're going to start scrolling down here. Who's number 20? Well, we got honorable mentions first. Honorable mentions, Lamar Miller, of course, Trey Madden. A lot of these guys not in the NFL anymore, but Derrick Henry's on this list. Still in the NFL, and he's still rolling strong. Other guys like David Johnson, Devonta Freeman have really fallen off since their time. Well, they were both Pro Bowlers in the past. They haven't really lived up to anything. It's good because of age expectations. Matt Forte no longer in the NFL. Marshawn Lynch not on a team. Josh Stewart out of the NFL. Jamal Charles also out of the NFL. The only two guys left are currently, well, actually, technically, Marshawn Lynch is still around as well. Him, Adrian Pearson, LaShawn McCoy, but to number 20, it's Melvin Gordon. And Melvin Gordon, to me, is not a top 20 running back in the NFL anymore. There was a time, probably maybe for 1 year, where he was, maybe two, you could argue. But now he's going to Denver. I think he's probably going to supplant Philip Lindsay as the starter in Denver, which I feel bad for Lindsay because he's done nothing but play great football, except Denver seemed to want to get rid of him. They tried giving more of his snaps to Royce Freeman last year, and then that didn't really work out. Now they've moved on and got Melvin Gordon. So I think they're trying to get rid of Philip Lindsay. I feel bad for him. But they brought in Melvin Gordon. For me, he's a top 25 guy, maybe a number 22 overall in the NFL right now. But he only really has one standout season behind him, 1 year where I really think he blew everyone out of the water. And I don't trust him in terms of his health necessarily. And, I'm looking at stats now. Only 1 year where he's actually played his next high is 14 games as his rookie season. Last 2 years, he's only played 12 games each year. So for me, this guy can't stay healthy. He tried holding out last year to get more money. He wanted to get paid like David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Tucker Lee, Ezekiel Elliott, those kind of guys. Clearly, he found out the NFL doesn't value him at that level. And he ended up pulling out into the year, came back, had a pretty decent play, cost himself a lot of money. And he's had 4 out of his 5 years where he's averaged fewer than 4 yards per carry. And my one thing I keep saying over and over again is if you're starting caliber running back in the NFL, you should at least, at a minimum, average 4 yards per carry. He only has one season in his career where he's averaged over 4 yards per carry to me. So not a top 20 running back in my opinion. But I think 20 is actually a pretty good spot for me because I have him among projected starting running backs. I have him projected to start over Philip Lindsay. I have him to break 22. So this is pretty close in my opinion. It's a pretty good one. I'm out to Devonta Booker, and there's going to be some oofs in here like that. There's going to be some ones you go by and see some names. These are guys who were really productive in college but just never worked out in the NFL. And Booker spent, 3 or 4 years with Denver? He spent a couple of years with those after being a fourth-round pick. So obviously, as a fourth-round pick, was not projected to be a superstar to begin with. He never really called and never really was a starter in the NFL league after 4 years. So, or he's technically probably still – is he still on the Denver's roster? I'm not sure, but he's around the NFL. He's just not a starter by any means. He's not anywhere near, I would say, not even a top 50 running back in the NFL. Looking at his numbers now based on last season, he had only 2 carries for 9 yards. So this is not a guy who is an important piece on an NFL team right now. And that brings us to number 18, Alex Collins. This is another guy who put up good numbers in college but never translated. Well, he did have 1 year where he was really good in the NFL. He had the 2017 season in Baltimore. Baltimore's always good at producing running backs, always good at having good running seasons. but he started 15 games. He played in 15 games, started 12 games, sorry. Averaged 4.6 yards per carry from 973 yards and 6 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the following year, injuries, couldn't stay healthy, a bunch of stuff happened. So only one really good year. He's not in the league right now. He had some off-the-field issues, as I recall, as well. But it's a shame because I did really like him as a player for the 1 year he was really good in Baltimore. I'm a Steelers fan, so that's saying a lot. But this is a guy who was really productive at Arkansas, just never worked out, and not in the NFL right now. Here we go again. It's the same situation over and over again with some of these guys appeared. Samaje Perine, and he was with the Redskins for a little while. But again, this is a guy who was really good in college, put up good numbers at Oklahoma. Although he was better in his freshman and sophomore years than he was in his junior season, he actually started turning in the wrong direction, I think, which is why his draft stock really fell off. He ended up being a fourth-round selection, and he basically flunked out of the Washington Redskins program, which is saying a lot because it's an organization that's always looking for talent. And that backfield is all kinds of messed up right now, and he couldn't stick around there. So I think it's safe to say he's not a top 20 running back in the NFL right now. This is an interesting one. James Conner. So James Conner came out of Pittsburgh. Well, first, of course, he had the year where he battled cancer. He ended up winning, obviously, but that kind of set him back a little bit. He was not the same dominant college player he was after the cancer treatment. That's he got a little bit of a smaller workload. Didn't get as many touches. His game style changed a little bit. He still ended up getting drafted fairly high. He was a third-round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he showed real promise. In 2018, he was a Pro Bowler. He recorded 1,470 yards from scrimmage and 13 touchdowns in only 13 games. So it looked great, looked phenomenal. He was a Pro Bowler that year. And then, of course, this past season just fell flat. Couldn't stay healthy. He looks brittle, to say the least, through the first 3 seasons of his career. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. I think for him moving forward, staying healthy has to be the biggest thing. Because if he stays healthy and plays like he did in 2018, he's great. He'll be a great player. And I love the guy. But again, the issue just is if you can't stay healthy, you really can't stick around in the NFL, especially at the running back position. So for me, I don't think James Conner is a top 20. I have him ranked at number 29 in my projected starters coming into the season. So I have him fairly low, and that's partially because he struggled last year. I don't think Pittsburgh's offensive line is going to get much better, and their blocks can be worse. I don't think James Conner can struggle with injuries yet again. Number 15, Eddie Lacy, the man who will forever be remembered as the guy who ate himself out of the NFL. Now, Eddie Lacy was probably the same running back class as Le'Veon Bell. He actually won the 2013 Offensive Rookie of the Year award over Bell because Bell dealt with injuries and various other issues. In his first 2 seasons, Lacy looked like he could be one of that next wave of running backs. He looked like he could be that guy in Green Bay. In those 2 years, over 2,300 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns, 684 receiving yards, 4 more receiving touchdowns. So this was a guy who was doing it both through the air and on the ground. And he had a real role in that offense. And that was really helping them roll along. But then injuries, inconsistencies in 2015, more issues in 2016. In 2017, he's in Seattle. He's no longer even a starter and basically couldn't maintain his weight, had a lot of issues, and it just didn't work out. And this was a guy who was phenomenal. It's a shame, too. See, he was a phenomenal player for his first 2 seasons. He just kind of got between the weight issues and burnout, he just ended up out of the NFL. So this is a guy who, again, I can understand why Matt Miller would project him to be a top 20 running back in the NFL at this point in time based on what he was doing in 2016 when this article was written, because he was still in Green Bay at that time and was hoping he could turn things around. But he just didn't. Everything just went downhill very quickly from him. Number 14, TJ Yeldon. Again, this is another instance where this one I might consider a little more questionable for Matt Miller's part. This is 2016. 2016 was Yeldon's second year in the NFL. He'd had a decent but forgettable year with Jacksonville Jaguars, his former second-round pick from Alabama. And he, after producing over 1,000 yards in scrimmage as a rookie, just fell off the map. I mean, he ended up still starting most of in 2016, his second year in the NFL. But he averaged fewer than 4 yards per carry, just finished the year with only 777 yards from scrimmage, and was never a starter again, really. Spent the remaining next 2 years of his rookie contract in Jacksonville. He was in Buffalo last year. This is just a depth guy at this point. He's not a starter in the NFL, and by no means is he close to the top 20 running backs in the league. Jalen Hurd, again, this is this is a revolving situation where we just seeing these guys who are phenomenal in college, but just never worked out in the NFL. And Jalen Hurd is certainly one of those guys. And the issue with Hurd is that he didn't even enter the NFL as a running back. He entered the league, if I recall, as a wide receiver. And he hasn't played in the league yet. He's not been a contributor. I don't think he's recorded any stats. He was placed on IR in October this past year after being picked by the San Francisco 49ers in the third round of the 2019 NFL draft. So he's done nothing in the league so far. And it's an interesting situation for him because he was a running back at Tennessee for 3 years, from 2014 through 2016. In 2015, he had a big year. Looked like he could probably be a future star. I don't know if it was injuries. I don't know what the issues were in 2016, but he only appeared in 7 games and didn't play well at all. And his totals and everything just dropped off entirely. Looks like he transferred to 2018. He's at Baylor. He's as a wide receiver now, no longer as a running back. So this is a big whiff. I think this is probably the most questionable one. This one and TJ Yeldon are probably both questionable ones in my opinion, because part of the guy who got shifted to receiver before the end of his college career. So I don't really know why you'd be so high on John's career running back. And I think there probably would have been questions that would have told you that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest whiffs on this list so far. Going down now, we've got Carlos Hyde at number 12. And I understand this gangsta. The Hyde thing there was a lot of hype around Carlos Hyde. And people believe in 2016 he had a decent year, but he was never that superstar guy. 2016 was probably by far his best NFL season. 988 rushing yards. He averaged 76 yards per game, 4.6 yards per carry. But this is a guy who has never been a transcendent player. I think people want him to become that kind of guy. People thought he was going to be a Pro Bowler, and a lot of people were trying to talk it into existence, as I recall. I do remember, especially in fantasy leagues, people were trying to talk Carlos Hyde being the next running back into existence, and it just never happened. So for me, I think Carlos Hyde was a lot of hype. I don't believe I ever personally bought into it, and I think Carlos Hyde was definitely one of the over projections by a lot of people, not just Miller, but a lot of people thought he'd be much better than he ended up being. Here we've got 11 Royce Freeman. And Freeman's an interesting situation because he's now the third string running back on the Denver Broncos. I mentioned that Denver is probably trying to take away carries and give carries to Melvin Gordon, not Philip Lindsay this coming year. They tried to do the same thing over the last 2 seasons with Royce Freeman because Philip Lindsay was an undrafted free agent from the 2018 NFL draft. Royce Freeman was a third-round pick from that same year. And Freeman was a very projected player in Oregon, so I can understand why he's this high. But at the same point, this is a guy who also was only a third-round pick. If you look based on his 2014-2015 stats, I mean, he was phenomenal. He had over 1,800 rushing yards, and he had 17 touchdowns as a sophomore. But as a junior in 2016, issues, injuries, again, it's the usual stuff that we've seen down this list time and time again. Only finished with 945 yards. He bounced back as a senior, had a better year. But I think teams were kind of growing a little weary on him. He ended up being a third-round pick, a very quality NFL running back. Don't get me wrong, very quality backup player, but not by any means a starter. And this is probably one of the best projections he's had so far. Christian McCaffrey ranked at number 10. Now, of course, Christian McCaffrey on my board, I'm just telling you right now, he's ranked number 1 for obvious reasons. But I think looking at it, if you get any of the guys right for the top 20, I think it's probably pretty impressive because you're projecting 4 years ahead. And at the time, I'm trying to twist, this is 2016. This is what year? What month is this? This is before or after the 2016 season. This is after the 2016 season. So this is after McCaffrey's final year at Stanford. And I know people were projecting him to be a high pick, so you might not think it's that much of a jump to say. But at the same point, especially McCaffrey, who come out of college football having had these great college careers, and suddenly they run into issues in the NFL. And there were real questions about McCaffrey and about his size coming into the league. So it wasn't like this was a guy who was a perfect prospect. There were issues there, or supposedly there were issues there that had to be examined. Now, I think obviously Christian McCaffrey's proven all of his doubters wrong in the NFL level, but this is a solid pickup, picking him number 10. And I think, like I said, you can get anyone right projecting 4 years into the future. I think it's great. Because, look at it this way. People might say, oh, it's so easy to project that far ahead. But consider this. Todd Gurley was the best running back in the NFL 2 years ago. He was the best running back in the NFL probably 3 years ago, so 2017 and 2018. Best running back in the NFL. I have Todd Gurley as my number 18 projected starter going into this next season. I mean, that just tells you how much everything changes so quickly. A guy like Melvin Gordon, who's projected to be a potential perennial Pro Bowler, he's now number 22 on my projected starts going into the year. So he's a guy who fell off too. David Johnson, this is a guy who was a first-team All-Pro in 2016, so I expect we'll see him probably higher up in the list somewhere. And there was thoughts this would be the next guy to be the next 1,000 back like Christian McCaffrey ended up being. He was that good. People thought he was going to be that good. He then had all those injuries, and he's now my number projected 28 starting running back coming to the year. So these are guys who were great for 1 or 2 years and completely fell off afterwards. So I don't think it's shocking at all that you have trouble projecting that far ahead. And now here's another hit, Sacrum Barkley at number 9. Sacrum Barkley has always been special. I think he's been the most hyped up running back prospect, more hyped up than Todd Gurley, more hyped than Leonard Fournette. I think he's been viewed that way for the last maybe 2 years of his college career at Penn State. Definitely for the season, but came in and made an immediate impact as a rookie. Didn't have as good of a year last year. I think part of that was because the offensive line was still having issues. I think now they've got Daniel Jones in place and they built around him a little more, they'll be better moving forward. I think Sacrum Barkley would bounce back in his third season, similar to what Todd Gurley did with the Rams when he was there. Now, I project Barkley as my number 2 projected star going into this next season. I think that's a little bit high. I can understand people are concerned about that. But I think he's a top 5 to top 7 guy in the league right now. So I have no problem with Matt Miller putting him at number 9. Number 8, and this is where we get back into issues, is Matt Jones. And Matt Jones is another former Washington Redskins. The Redskins have been trying to find their running back for a long time now. It just hasn't been working out. I don't understand the Matt Jones selection at all. No, not whatsoever. I don't get it. Because this guy was a third-round pick in 2015. You're running this after – oh, no, I'm sorry. You're running this after the 2015 season. My bad. I misread the date. You're running this in 2016, but it's January 2016, so it's after the 2015 season. Well, in 2015 was Matt Jones' rookie year. This guy appeared in 13 games, did not start any games. 3.4 yards, finished the rookie season with 409 yards. This was a third-round pick. This guy was not like the dude. So I don't understand why you're putting guys like Sacrum Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, who had more productive seasons. Even guys like Bruce Freeman, I don't know why you would put those guys below Matt Jones, who wasn't even a superstar running back at Florida, which is where he went to college. So I don't understand why Matt Jones is this high. This is probably a personal choice for him. Or maybe it just worked out because the way he's evaluating them with all the different categories. Maybe Jones just scored high because of that system. But otherwise, I don't think Jones is really – Jones' pick just doesn't make sense to me. It's no one like the T.J. Yeldon one. It just doesn't make sense. Or the Jalen Hurd one. Number 7, Jeremy Hill. And Hill, this is understandable because Hill had some good years. His first 3 years in the NFL were solid. His rookie season was really the best one by far. That's when he rushed for over 1,000 yards. He led the league in rushing touchdowns in his second season with 11, which wasn't really a high bar, but at the same point, he still led the league. Even in his third season, he still had 9 rushing touchdowns, 839 rushing yards. So it was a productive back, but just kind of hit a wall. Dealt with injuries in 2017 and stuff like that. Ended up in New England in 2018, didn't really see the field much, and is out of the NFL. So Hill was a guy who flashed for a very short period of time, and then immediately was gone. So obviously not a top 20 running back, not even the NFL anymore. Nick Chubb, I love this pick. I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. I have Nick Chubb as my projected number 3 starting running back going into the season, ahead of Ezekiel Elliott, ahead of Derrick Henry, ahead of Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, all those guys. I love Chubb. He's great. I think he is one of potentially a transcendent player. And when I say transcendent player, I mean a guy who will be an all-decade type player in the 2020s. I think he's that good. and I've loved him since Georgia. I was really upset and worried when he got hurt in 20. I think he broke his leg. I forget what it was. It was a devastating injury, or an injury that could have really derailed what he was doing. And he ended up staying in Georgia for both his junior and senior seasons. I think if he hadn't had the injury, he probably would have left after his junior year. But he stuck around, proved himself, managed to become a second-round pick, and now he's performing like a first-round caliber player in the NFL. So I love this selection here. I think this is a spot-on pick by Matt Miller. Number 5, Dalvin Cook, good selection. I have Dalvin Cook as my number 7 projected starter going into the year. Dalvin Cook's a guy who was phenomenal in college. Similar to Nick Chubb, who's a guy who was viewed as one of these great prospects. He went to Florida State. He had 3 really good years there, although 2 of them I think was really ones that caught eyes his sophomore season and his junior season. That's what really turned scouts on to him. And he struggled really in his first 2 years in the NFL. He was doing good in his first 4 games as a rookie, averaging 88.5 yards per game, but then he got hurt. So he missed the majority of his rookie year, missed 6 or 5 games in his second season, and never really got going. This past year, he finally showed us his potential. Now he's holding out and asking for about $13 million per year. I don't think the Vikings are going to give him that just because it hasn't really worked out for teams who have done deals like that in the past. See David Johnson in the Cardinals, see Le'Veon Bell in the Jets, or Ty Gurley in the Rams. It just doesn't work out historically, or at least in recent history. So I don't think Dalvin Cook will be getting that money, but he is saying he's going to hold out. He could probably end up in a Melvin Gordon type scenario with Minnesota, but we'll see. I think Dalvin Cook's definitely better than Melvin Gordon, but at some point he'd still be in a situation where he could end up holding out into the year, but then just showing up anyways because he's not going to be getting that money. I just don't get it. Number 4, Le'Veon Bell. This is probably a ranking I would have had myself, albeit after 2015, 2016. After that range, I would have had Le'Veon Bell to be a 5 running back in the league moving forward. And this was a guy who was a top 5 running back in the 2014 through 2017 range. He was arguably a top 3 running back at the time. But now, after sitting out in 2018 because he just had contract dispute with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then 2019 was a very disappointing season for multiple reasons. He wasn't very productive on the running game, only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. The Jets just sucked offensively as a whole. Sam Darnold was part of the problem. Robbie Anderson was part of the problem. The offensive line was part of the problem. Adam Gase, the head coach, was part of the problem. So it's not all in Le'Veon Bell. He struggled last year, but at the same point, he did indeed struggle last year. And I have him as my 14th projected starting running back going into the season. I think he could be low as 17 on some boards, honestly. So for me, having him in the top 20 is a win. Having him in the top 10 at this point is questionable. Again, this was an article written back in January 2016 or February 2016. So understandably, if you're trying to project that far ahead, it makes sense that you would have some near misses like this one. Zeke Elliott, this is another hit. Matt Miller's been pretty good here towards the top of the top 10. I've got Elliott as my number 4 projected starter, so we're 1 spot off, although I do definitely understand people have him at number 3. I have it Christian McCaffrey 1, Barkley 2, Chubb 3, Elliott 4. I totally understand people would want to move Barkley or Chubb around and move Elliott to the top 3. Yeah, it makes total sense to me. So to me, this is a great selection. I think Zeke is one of the few running backs who has shown so far that through thick and thin, he can be a very productive player. My one question for him moving forward is every year he's averaging fewer rushing yards per game. So I want to know if he's going to hit a wall, honestly. I want to know if he's going to have that point in his career where he just can't, or he just goes out in there and he's just burned out. I think so far he's been phenomenal. I think so far he's been trending on like a potential Hall of Fame caliber track. But again, if he goes out there this year or the year after that and just doesn't have it anymore, or just has one of those bad down years, I mean, that could be it. That could be really hitting the wall. And we've seen guys like Sean Alexander, Tyler Gurley, we've seen it happen to them where they go out and they have either an injury or it's just fatigue. Alfred Morris was the same way, DeMarco Murray. These guys just go out there and something's just different. They just don't have it anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out for Ezekiel Elliott because he's got a lot of carries and a lot of yards on his body through 4 seasons. But top 5 running back in the NFL right now for sure. Yeah, we saw this one. We should know was coming. Let me go ahead because I know who the number 1 is probably. Oh wait, that wasn't who I was expecting, but I was expecting to be someone entirely different. But now I kind of ruined the finale. But the same point, Todd Gurley at number 2, understandable again because what he was doing at the time. This guy was huge. College prospect at Georgia. Again, there were some concerns about injuries when he was coming out of school because he hadn't really stayed healthy in his final 2 years. But there was so much hype based on what he had done early on. And so he was still ended up being the 10th overall pick in the 2015 draft. Had a really good rookie year, down second year, phenomenal 2017-18 campaigns, first team All-Pro both years, and was Offensive Player of the Year in 2017. So he was a great player for about 3 years of his first 4 seasons. And then last year, the injuries he suffered towards the end of 2018 clearly causing him some issues. The Rams' offensive line was dead. Basically, the offensive line was just been torn apart. Goff was struggling. The whole defense wasn't the same. So everything kind of fell apart in LA. And Gurley kind of became the scapegoat in my mind a little bit. But now he's signed a deal with the Atlanta Falcons, kind of prove a deal. And I'm hoping he can bounce back. I think there's a better chance he actually bounces back than most people would think. But at the same point, I still only have Gurley ranked 18th overall in my starters ranking for running backs going into the season. That's just because I don't know what he's going to be. Like I said, I think he can bounce back. But at the same point, I don't feel comfortable projecting him to be like a top 15 running back in the NFL right now. And that brings us to number 1, who I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be someone different. But I might mess my timing up on that one. So that's why I screwed up. But it's Leonard Fournette. And this is understandable because Leonard Fournette was supposed to be like the next Adrian Peterson type guy. He was the next one. Basically, he was Todd Gurley after Todd Gurley, and he was Sacrum Barkley before Sacrum Barkley. That's essentially who he was. He was the next ultra-athletic, physical running back who was going to be the next Adrian Peterson, the next Hall of Fame, like ridiculous running back prospect to get into the NFL. And he's certainly been good in the NFL. As a rookie, he ran for over 1,000 yards in just 13 games. And after a down 2018 season, which was ruined by injuries and a whole bunch of stuff, some drama between him and the front office and the head coaching staff as well, this past year he ran for over 1,100 rushing yards. So this is a guy who is certainly capable of going out there producing. He also had 76 receptions, so he's expanding his role in the passing game as well. But he's just not what everyone was hoping he was going to be. He's not that transcendent running back. He's not that generational talent. He's kind of just another back in a sense. I wouldn't even say he's that much different or that much better than someone like an Alfred Morris we saw this years ago. I don't have Alfred Morris's numbers now, but he was a guy who was solid for 3 or 4 years in Washington. But I'd argue that Morris in 2012 and 2013 was probably more productive than Leonard Fournette has been his entire career so far. So for me, Fournette is a decent back, a good starter, but I don't know if he'll last because of his physical style of play. I haven't projected at my number 15 overall starting spot for the coming season. So he's a top 20 running back for sure, but I don't believe he's near the top 10 right now. And that about wrap up the video. I talked for a little longer than I expected. I was only hoping to do 20 minutes. It's now going on 29 minutes. But hopefully this video does a little bit better than the last one. The last one only had 5 views last time I checked. So we'll see what happens there. Again, I do have a video scheduled for Justin Wagner and Matt Duffer tomorrow. We're going to be counting on top 10 players in the NBA. We're also going to hear some takes from Brian Spilark. I got his list on Mark Forcelli. I got his list as well. And again, this is active NBA players. We'll be doing that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to go check that out if you have made it somehow 29 minutes for me rambling. But thank you anyways for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. Honestly, it really just means a lot to me. But thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.